What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of the Premier League SPUR-SPECTIVE, which is the review show of Predict the Prem, where me and my brother go head-to-head in predicting Premier League outcomes. The scores on the doors at the moment are 266 to Sim, 290 to me, and the way the scoring works, it's 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result, and the star man, once you pick them, you cannot pick them for the rest of the season. And it's a big one this week, Kane against Haaland, and it's 5 points for a goal, 3 points for an assist. And let's get straight into the first game of the week, which was Aston Villa against Newcastle. 3-0 to Aston Villa to bring an abrupt run to Newcastle's run. Sim went 2-2. I went to 2-0, 2-1 to Newcastle. But the impressive Aston Villa under Unai Emery keep rolling on, and it really was an impressive victory, this one. They absolutely battered Newcastle, and that Ollie Watkins, 2 goals, his form keeps rolling on as well. So you've got to give massive credit to Unai Emery. And are they in for a shout for top 4?
You have to say, at the moment, 6 points behind Newcastle, albeit Newcastle have a game in hand. But in this kind of form, 6 wins in a row now for Unai Emery. It's really, really impressive how he's gotten them playing. I thought at the beginning of his tenure they were getting good results, but I felt like the results were better than maybe the performances. But now the performances of late have really started to match the results, and it's really, really impressive. What he's got out of Ollie Watkins is sensational. I thought they used him really, really well on the counter-attack. And how I was looking at the game is, it was quite, I think Villa were definitely the better team in the first half and they deservedly took the lead, but it was a bit more of an even game. And then Newcastle made the substitution like they did last week. They brought on Wilson to partner with Isaac, and you thought, okay, is this going to be like last week? Are they going to link up, and is it going to be a lot more offensive? And actually, for the first few minutes, it looked like Newcastle were going to get back level because Wilson had a chance. They had a few openings, but what happened is they missed a couple of opportunities, and then they were a lot more open at the back. And all of a sudden, Villa were completely able to exploit those Newcastle frailties when they were throwing caution to the wind. And actually, after those a few missed chances, it was all Aston Villa. They controlled that latter part of the game so well. They got their 2 goals through Ollie Watkins, and it was super, super impressive how they managed that game, Aston Villa. You got to give them props. And yeah, look, 3 points behind Spurs. At the moment, behind 5th, so definitely on for Europa League. But Champions League, I think they've got an outside gut shot. I think they're in the race now. They've put themselves in it. I don't think
they've got more of a chance of finishing in the top 4 than us.
They do, 100%, because our form is absolutely dreadful, and they've gone 6 wins in a row. So of course they have more chance than us. We can't even beat Bournemouth at home. But I think they've probably left it a bit too late. But look, you never know. If they can continue this run and just keep winning, you never know.
Yeah. Let's move on to Chelsea against Brighton. 2-1 to Brighton at Stamford Bridge. Sim went for 2-1 to Brighton, so he gets a big fat 5-pointer for this one. I went for 2-0, so only 1 point coming my way. And I thought this scoreline flattered Chelsea a little bit. I thought they went 1-0 up against the run of play early doors. And after that, I just thought Brighton absolutely pummeled them. Probably should have got more goals, but they got their win in the end.
To be fair, the goal Chelsea scored, it was like a complete fluke, wasn't it? Massive deflection from Conor Gallagher. So they probably shouldn't have had that. Even before they scored, Chelsea, Brighton probably should have had a goal or two. I mean, look at the just going by the stats. Imagine this, saying this like maybe a year ago, these stats. Chelsea at home to Brighton. Chelsea shots 8, Brighton 26. 26 shots at Stamford Bridge. 10 on target as well. So it wasn't even like it was like 26 pot shots. These are 20, like 6 good chances. XG, Chelsea 0.54, Brighton 2.94.
At Stamford Bridge,
that's incredible. In 2.5 more XG than Brighton. That's the kind of mess Chelsea are in right now. And also, you got to give Brighton amazing credit, and deserve. We give them credit every week. They're playing unbelievable football, but Chelsea are in an look, they've been in a mess for a long time, but I really think this Lampard appointment has compounded that mess. I think it was just a shocking appointment. I don't know what they're thinking when it didn't end well. And have you read his stats? His last 17 games as a manager, I think it's 1 win, 14 defeats.
1 win, 14 defeats.
Yeah, how mad is that? How mad is that? And I don't understand.
And he's got this Chelsea job twice.
I don't know what they were thinking, appointing him as interim to the end of the season. season because they thought it would give a good vibe around the place or something, and it would just like give the place an uplift. Was this uplifting? 3 defeats in a row, just losing every week.
Better off sticking with Potter.
100%. And even with Potter, everyone was the big thing with Potter for me. First of all, I actually thought Chelsea were getting better under Potter performance-wise. The thing with Potter is they were creating loads of chances, they just couldn't put them away. Now they can't even create a chance. So what was the whole point of this? I think Bowley has made a complete pig's ear of it.
Yeah, but is it going to make too much of a difference? I mean, their season was pretty much done anyway.
Yeah, but if it was done, you might as well stick with the manager.
Yeah, I get that. But, like, is it going to make too much of a difference in the grand scheme of things?
What, sticking with Potter or going with Lampard?
Yeah,
I mean, now they're literally losing every week.
Yeah, I know that, but they were losing every week pretty much before anyway, with the odd win here and there.
You know, how they played against Dortmund, they played really well.
Yeah, I get that, but like what I'm saying is, in the grand scheme of things, if they're going to sack Potter at the end of the season regardless, and the season's pretty much gone, then what's the difference? Is like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make too much of a difference.
I guess, but the football they're now putting out compared to how they were playing under Potter is so much worse.
Yeah,
so much worse. So I just think he's made a few bad mistakes, Bowley, and you know how he's dealt with everything. And he's been making making team talks in the dressing room before games and stuff.
I know it's ridiculous, but what I would say is that those mistakes can be rectified in the summer.
Of course, he's only been he's been in this job 1 year. There's going to be mistakes made, but you can see already this game is ruthless. You know what I mean? And and it's being shown. But look, Brighton, I think in a weird way after this game, probably put themselves maybe back in the top 4 conversation now, because they were kind of out of it last week after losing to us.
But now they've won.
And Newcastle lost. So I think we're 4 points behind us and we're 3 points behind Newcastle. So they're 7 points behind Newcastle with a game in hand on Newcastle. And they've got Newcastle and Man United to play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they turn up in those games and get wins, they're right back in it.
They've got City and Arsenal to play as well.
City and Arsenal.
They're going to have a big say in what happens for the rest of this season.
Yeah, I would say their fixtures are probably a bit too difficult to get it. But look, they're playing well enough to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on and let's talk about Everton against Fulham. 3-1 to Fulham on the day. Sim went 2-0 to Everton. I went 1-0 to Everton. And Fulham, which seemed like to be on the beach for the last couple of weeks, I think 5 losses in a row or something for Fulham, and they go to Goodison Park, which has been a really hard place to go since Sean Dyche has taken over, and they go and win 3-1 in a really important game for Everton. I mean, Everton will be kicking themselves surely in this game.
Everton were poor, man. Yeah. They were not very good. I think it was more to do with how poor Everton were than how good Fulham were. And I think Fulham have been on the beach for sure for the last few weeks, and they've had a number of losses in a row, and you couldn't really see when the next one was coming from, how they were playing. But I think Everton, they did not turn up in this game. It was really poor going forward. They offered very little on the ball. They did get a goal through Dwight McNeil, but that was kind of out of nothing, whereas Fulham's play was they did have some good build-up play, and obviously they scored some nice goals. Harrison Reed, Harry Wilson were heavily involved in the goals, but I think it was more to do with how poor Everton were, and this has got to be a bit alarm bells ringing now for Everton, because it looked like they were going to save themselves under Sean Dyche, but after that defeat in a row, that's now no win in 4, 2 defeats in a row now, and they're only outside of the bottom 3 on goal difference, and to lose to a team like Fulham in this kind of scenario, in a weird way, that might set off more alarm bells than maybe losing to like a team in the bottom half who are fighting tooth and nail. To lose to a team like Fulham who have got nothing to play for, 3-1 like that, has got to be worrying when you should be the one with the fight, the team with the fight.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their fixtures. I mean, they have got actually really hard fixtures. They got to go to Palace next week, Newcastle, go to Goodison the week after, then they got a game against Leicester, but then Brighton, Man City. I mean, they've got very, very hard fixtures, but they do end the season at home to Bournemouth, so that could be the game that could save them. But is it going to be too late by then?
Could be. I think they'll have to pick up some points along the way, 100%. There, you got to be worried as an Everton fan that maybe this has the bounce worn off for Sean Dyche. Who did you say they have next week?
They got Palace.
Palace. If they don't win that game, that's no win in 5. That has to in a relegation scrap.
And then after that, they got Newcastle, and then Man City to come.
So,
Brighton to come.
So basically, Palace, if they don't beat Palace, they're not going to be there. There's basically no win in 7.
They've got Leicester in between there.
Oh, in between. It's tough times at the moment for Everton.
All right, let's move on to the next game, which was Southampton against Crystal Palace. Finished 2-0 to Crystal Palace. I went 2-1, so I get a point for that one. Sim went 1-1. And the Roy Hodgson train keeps on rolling. I mean, I don't think it was as a convincing display as it has been the last couple of weeks for Roy Hodgson and Crystal Palace, but they did get the job done at the expense of another poor Southampton side.
Yeah, and Southampton had chances in this game. They will be kicking themselves, especially in the first half. They didn't take many of them, and that they were kind of poor in front of goal, and they had a lot of the momentum, but unfortunately they couldn't make it pay. And then in the second half, a couple of lapses at the back, and Palace made them pay. Eberechi Eze is in flying form, isn't he? And what's really impressive, I have to say, about Hodgson, I don't think any of the wins, I mean, they've been good wins, obviously 5-1 away at Leeds, 2-0 Southampton, they beat Leicester 2-1 in the last minute. So 3 good wins against teams in and around them. None of them, I would say, are any surprising, but what is very impressive is the fact that at half-time in that Leicester game, Zaha's gone off injured, and you're thinking, what are they going to do? Are they going to really struggle for goals? And Eze and Olise have really stepped up in the last couple of weeks, and they've been scoring goals for fun, 7 goals in the last 2. And Eze himself, playing in this kind of free role, has really shone in these last few weeks, and I think he's always had that ability to be a much better player than he's shown in the Premier League, and I definitely think he's Premier League level, and I think the last few weeks he's really living up to his potential.
Well, I think Eze injuries have always held him back, because I always feel like he always gets to a certain stage and he's building momentum and then he gets a long injury, and I think that's happened quite a few times with Eberechi Eze at Crystal Palace, but I think he's always shown that he's a really good player and a talented player, and definitely at home in the Premier League. But I just feel like once he kind of wriggles off those injury problems and has a long sustained period in the first team, I think everyone will see his true value, and you're probably starting to see it now.
Definitely, yeah. Southampton look doomed though.
Yeah, Southampton definitely.
I mean, to be fair, it is still only 4 points, but
it is. But the way they're playing at the moment, the results they're getting,
4 losses in 5 now.
Yeah, they are just sleepwalking to relegation. It seems at the moment. Yeah,
again, similar to, you just don't see where they're going to get any points at the moment. The way they're playing.
Yeah, they're next. They got to go away to Arsenal next game.
So that's 0 points.
Then they play Bournemouth the game after. Then Newcastle, Forest, Fulham, Bournemouth, Brighton, and Southampton and Liverpool last game. Similar
to other teams that when they appointed Ruben Telles, who's their interim manager, who was the assistant. They had an initial bounce, but seems to have faded. And who's the only team they got a point against the last 5?
Us.
Yay!
But to be fair, a game before that, they got a point up United as well.
That's true. That is true.
But anyway, let's move on to Wolves against Brentford. Finished 2-0 to Wolves on the day. Sim went 2-1 to Brentford. I went 1-0 to Brentford, and Brentford starting to slide a little bit. They seem to maybe be on the beach a little bit in the last 5 games.
Beach ready, maybe?
Beach ready, it seems that way. Wolves, on the other hand, they're such a weird team, Wolves, because they'll go on a run and beat Chelsea and Brentford, and they'll go lose to or draw to Nottingham Forest and I can't remember who else, but they drop poor points and they go beat us. I mean, they're just such a weird team, Wolves. But again, getting the points at Molineux, 2-0, an impressive victory for Wolves.
Yeah, Diego Costa getting his first goal since re-signing, which he's re-signed near the beginning of the season because of injuries, and hasn't really done great, but he did come up when it mattered, although did get a bit of luck with his goal. I wouldn't say they were brilliant in this game, Wolves, but they kind of kept Brentford in check for a large part of the game. Brentford did have some chances from set pieces, and Tony and Mbeumo did threaten, but Wolves were able to hold strong. They did seal the game later on with Hwang, who's seemed to have picked up a bit of form of late, scoring a few goals. And look, I don't think it was a massively convincing victory, but a much needed victory for Wolves in their fight for survival. Puts them up to 13th. They're now 7 points clear of the relegation scrap. So they might feel like at this point that's a good enough buffer at this point that they should be safe. Obviously, you're never going to feel too comfortable until you hit the 40, but at 34 points with 7 games to go, they should be okay, I'd say.
It'll be much less than 40 this year anyway.
Yeah, it's looking like it. It's looking like Brentford, as you say, they're 9th, 43 points there. In terms of Europa League, they're 7 points away, same games played. So it seems as though any chance of Europe is probably gone now for Brentford.
Yeah, they're in the same boat as Fulham now.
Yeah, it looks like two beach-ready teams. Well, 3, including Chelsea.
Yeah, next up, Tottenham against Bournemouth. 3-2 to Bournemouth on the day. I went 2-1, Sim went 3-1, both to Spurs. I think the less said about this one, the better, seeing as we have covered it to the death on this channel. But another really poor performance, really.
And yeah, another calamity and absolute shocking defensively that we've seen so often this season from Tottenham. 95th minute as well, conceding another late goal. That's last three games we've conceded goals in the 90th minute. But talking about Bournemouth, 3 wins in their last 4. Really, that's really impressive form. 6 points clear of the drop zone now. So, who would have thought they would be in this kind of position after 31 games when they were just after January? I think they were on such a bad run, losing I think 5 in a row. But I have to say their January signings have really helped them, and their change formation. Gary O'Neill has changed things up. And they're flying at the moment. Fair play to them.
Scott Parker was managing there early on in the season. You just thought no chance of this team staying up. A squad full of championship players. Scott Parker's complaining.
Lost 9-0.
Yeah, they didn't bring in any players and stuff like that. I mean, Gary O'Neill came in, got an initial bounce, and then it reverted back to what it was under Scott Parker, didn't it? And now he's kind of turned it around. So impressive job there.
I think the January transfer window has probably saved them at this point. Some good signings, and they're doing great. And I think they should be, unless they go on another run where they lose every game, I think they should have enough to stay up now.
Yeah. Let's move on to Manchester City against Leicester. 3-1 to City at the Etihad. Sim went 4-0. I went 6-0. And you know what? It should have been closer to those scorelines because City just took their foot off the gas at half-time. They got the job done at half-time, didn't they? Haaland scores 3-0 at half-time. After 25 minutes, it was 3-0. And you really thought it was just going to be a cricket scoreline, but they kind of just put their foot off the gas. Stones, Haaland go off at half-time. Rodri goes off 5 minutes later, and De Bruyne goes off 10 minutes after that, and basically just saving themselves for the Champions League. So they get the job done after 25 minutes, and that's it, really.
Yeah, it's essentially what happened. And in fact, if they weren't careful, if Iheanacho has that chance that hits the post, it could have gone 3-2. And I don't know how long there was left at that moment, but there were maybe a few minutes left after that. So there could have been a hairy moment. Lucky for them, the luck went their way. But they're just killing teams at the moment, Man City. The game's over at half time at the moment with Man City. They're complete. And you'd have to say, this new formation is working an absolute treat for Pep Guardiola. He's done it again. He's found a new way of playing. He's reinvented this team even midway through a season, and it's incredible. And having Stones in midfield, he's absolute joy to watch. He's a joy to watch in midfield. I never thought I'd say that about John Stones, but he's everywhere.
Their best player the other day in the Champions League.
And he scored a brilliant goal against Leicester as well. Yeah, in the Champions League, you saw him popping up just what you think if Stones is playing defensive midfield, he's just going to stay there. But he literally wanders all over the place, just picking up the ball.
Player,
he's developed into this hybrid centre-back midfield role, which is he's doing wonders, and he's really making use of his composure on the ball and his ability to keep the ball. So impressive. And this back 3 system with Kanji, Diaz, Ake is working really well as well. And it's
who says back 3 can't be an attacking formation?
I mean, it clearly can. But what do you need? What's the difference between their defenders and ours? It's not just they're good. They're good defenders. It's they're fast, strong, good in one-on-one situations, and it just means when they do get caught out, you have those defenders who are able to cover the ground and get over and cover the wide areas. Whereas at Tottenham, you have Dyer and Longley and Davis. They're just not on the same level as these defenders. Stones is brilliant, and also what it allows is Mahrez and Grealish to really get up high, and it allows them to get into those one-on-one against the fullbacks. And Mahrez and Grealish are 2 of the best wingers in the league when they're one-on-one against their fullback. And so that would delight. It was over by half time. Haaland obviously just up to 32 goals now in the Premier League, so he matches the record of a 20-game season with 32 games
to go for them.
8 games to go, so he's going to get 40 plus maybe. Unbelievable. But yeah, look, surely. I mean, we'll get into Arsenal in a sec, but they look like they're going to win every game, essentially, from now to the end of the season. They just don't look like dropping points.
Yeah, I mean, I think in their last 6 games or something, they've scored 3 minimum in a game, and it's gone up to 6s and 7s. I mean, they are just blowing teams away at the moment. And look, this is what champions do. At this stage of the season, they come alive, and that's exactly what they're doing.
It doesn't matter who they play. For example, a couple of weeks ago, they played Liverpool at home, no Haaland. They still scored 4 goals. Bayern 3-0. They're just absolutely taking teams to shreds.
They're the best team in the world by some stretch, I think.
The treble?
Very possible this year. I think it's very possible. It's not like sometimes we talk about the treble, right, with teams that are going for it at this stage of the season. But I've never seen a team come on this strong at this stage of the season when they're going for a treble. Like this, like to be in your best moment of a team like Man City, who have already been, look, they haven't been at their best this season, but they've still been brilliant, right? But to come on this strong, the way they're playing right now, they just look unbeatable. So I think it's a best chance since 99 probably.
Yeah, and if they win the treble, you have to say it's I guess they'll be the best Premier League team of all time, essentially.
Yeah, they will. They'll be locked with 99, won't they?
Yeah.
But I think with what they've won and how they've won it, I mean, they haven't won a Champions League yet, so that's like the last thing that they need to do to complete this team, isn't it?
They always find Pep just has finding a way of screwing up the Champions League. But maybe I think this year, I mean, think about who's left in it. I mean, they are the best team, but they're always the best team in it. They just find a way of screwing up. They'll probably beat Bayern, but in terms of what Madrid, Napoli or Milan and Inter,
going out tonight, you know?
and maybe, or who's the other team? Inter
AC.
No, because Inter are going to be who they play.
Inter are going through against Benfica, I think.
Benfica, sorry. So Inter probably Napoli or AC.
Milan are 1-0 up in the first leg.
So Napoli or AC, one of those, either of them. Then Madrid and City. Like, who's going to beat them? Only Madrid, really.
Only Madrid. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think City will do it. I think, and City are both our predictions pre-season as well. So anyway, let's move on to West Ham against Arsenal, the game of the weekend, people. Sim went 1-1. Sim went 2-1 to Arsenal. I went 4-1 to Arsenal. And if you would have made a scoreline prediction after the first 20 minutes, you probably would have been close to my 4-1, to be honest. Arsenal were breathtaking in those first 20 minutes. They absolutely tore Newcastle to shreds. Not Newcastle, West Ham to shreds. They got those 2 early goals, didn't they?
2-0 up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and they looked literally unbeatable, unplayable. And somehow, some way, West Ham got themselves back in the game. With a late goal in that first half, and it all changed, didn't it? It completely flipped on its head. And you got to say, if for the fans that are saying Arsenal didn't bottle it at Liverpool last week, even though they were 2-0 up and Liverpool come on strong because of the Anfield factor or whatever, you can't say they didn't bottle it this weekend, because this one was a pure bottle job.
They definitely did bottle it in this one, and I think last week it was more to do with how good Liverpool were, because Liverpool just upped their game, and in that second half, you have to say they were relentless. And whatever you want to say about Arsenal, Liverpool were so superior in that second half. They probably would have beaten Man City in the way they were playing. It was unbelievable, but this one was completely different. I actually think the way Man City won the day before, 3-0 up at half time and then taking players off. I think Arsenal looked at that and thought they could do the same and thought they were good enough, and they were arrogant enough to think that they could be 2-0 up after 10 minutes and then take their foot off the gas and just see out of the game from that point on. And I think that was symptomatic in the goal they conceded just before half time. What is Partey doing? You're 2-0 up, right? You're looking to extend your lead at the top of the table, and you're not long to go for half time. He gets the ball in the edge of the area. He tries to flick it over Rice's head. What is he doing? It was nonsense. And that set the tone. It was absolute nonsense. What is he doing? And then Rice nips in. He wins the Gabriel panics and gives away a penalty. And I think that was symptomatic of their attitude at 2-0 up. In fact, they didn't have a shot between when they scored the second goal and when they missed the penalty. They didn't have a shot on target in between that period. So that shows how they really took their foot off the gas. And I don't think it was a case of West Ham did improve, but I don't think it was a case of West Ham kind of being so good that Arsenal couldn't handle it. I just think it was a case of Arsenal being arrogant and Arsenal thinking that they had the game won already after 10 minutes and they could just see this out and didn't have to keep going for more goals and could just play around the back for 80 minutes essentially. And I think that Thomas Partey moment will come to bite them back in the arse. And then obviously they get the penalty, which was a gift, because I know it was a penalty, but it was a bit of a gift because it was outstretched arm by Antonio. Saka misses it, massive moment, puts it well wide. And you talk about bottle. That is what we talk about when you talk about bottling it with that moment. And then but it didn't help that within a couple minutes later it was 2-2.
That shows you how much of a knife edge this game was on, because those were the fine margins between 3 points and 1 point, right? If Saka scores that, they go on to win the game.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. It goes wide, and they go at the other end and score straight away, and Arsenal couldn't find a way back in the game.
And you have to say as well, at 2-2, West Ham probably looked more likely to score the third one. And you've got to be a bit worried going to looking at that, because
they're lucky they get Southampton up next.
Because Southampton, you think that's like the perfect fixture for them to get back on the good feeling again. They need that, because you saw, I remember the last time they went on a bad run a couple months ago, they went 3 games without a win, and then it was hard for them to get out of it. And they went to Villa, they struggling again.
Get out of it.
And then it was like it took that last minute goal from Jorginho to get out of it, and then they went on to beat Bournemouth and have a good run again.
When you're looking at these two teams now, Arsenal and Manchester City, I mean, you're seeing cracks are starting to appear for Arsenal, probably at the wrong time because of the way Man City are playing as well. They just look unbeatable. When you're looking at those 2 fixtures for Arsenal at the Etihad and at St James's Park, I mean, they need to go either draw at the Etihad and win at St James's Park, or vice versa, or something like that. So
they need 4 points out of those games minimum, because I think 3 at the rate Man City are going, 3 might not be enough. Yeah. So I think they do need to get 4 points out of both those games, and it's absolutely like a tough ask with the way the last 2 games have gone. Albeit, you could argue they've only had themselves to blame after being 2-0 up in both those games. But I would say in the West Ham game, there was more themselves to blame than the Liverpool game, where they were just the second best, I think, in that game. But look, credit to West Ham for not giving up and keeping going, and it was a great point for them. But Arsenal, I mean, to be fair, look, if they do beat Southampton on Friday night, which they probably will, that is 7-point gap, and albeit
but the next game is at the Etihad.
Albeit City will have 2 games in hand, but if they
to play them,
and to play them, but if they go to the Etihad and nick a point, that's 7 points with 2 games in hand, and City have been played. All of a sudden, that looks a bit different. Yeah, that looks very different.
They do have to go to St James's Park after that.
Yeah. But it still looks different. That would require Man City to be absolutely perfect, no room for error.
We're assuming that Man City are going to be perfect anyway, though, aren't we?
Yeah, because just how they're playing, they looks like they will. But I'm saying if they lose at the Etihad, I guess there's a bit of room for error for City, because they'll have a game in hand. So it's going to be it's still going to be quite tight. It's still going to be interesting. These last 2 draws in a normal title race, these 2 draws, Liverpool and West Ham, probably aren't terrible points. But in the way Man City are, these draws probably must feel like defeats.
Yeah, in terms of Arsenal, they got Southampton, then Man City, then Chelsea, then Newcastle. So they got Newcastle and Brighton double header.
So the next 4 games, really, that's where it's going to be won and lost.
Yeah, last 2 games are Forest and Wolves, which you expect them to win both of them.
So the next 4. It's the next 4. You got after Southampton, you've got City, Chelsea, Brighton, Newcastle. Yeah. Those 4 is where the title's going to be won and lost for Arsenal.
Agreed. So those are where the title's going to be lost for Arsenal, is what you mean.
Damn right.
Next up, Nottingham Forest against Manchester United. Both of us going for 1-1 in this game, but Man United absolutely swept Nottingham Forest aside in this one. 2-0, and I was quite impressed because Nottingham Forest have been fairly good, well, really good, to be honest, at the City Ground all season. But Man United just came and kind of swatted them aside, didn't they?
Yeah, credit where credit's due. They completely deserved the win. It was Forest, apart from a couple of early moments from like set pieces where they looked like they might cause United some trouble. Once United settled down, even without Rashford and without Martinez and Varane, they were still the superior team. Anthony really stepped up in this game, and I have to say, I think the main 2 players were Bruno and Eriksen. They were both absolutely fantastic in keeping possession, but not just keeping possession for possession's sake, but with quality as well, finding key passes in the final third, opening the space up for Anthony and Martial and Sancho as well to really get the best out of those players. And Forest, to be honest, look, Forest have now lost 4 out of their last 5. They look as well like they're really running out of steam, whereas their home form was really keeping them in it. Now their home form isn't the same, and it's starting to let them down a bit at the moment. So they look like a team that's doomed at the moment, the way they're playing. But Man United, fair play to them, brilliant performance, deserved the win. and that puts them in a really good place in the top 4 race. Albeit, I do think there's harder tests to come. There probably will be some more drop points for them, but that was a big win where they needed it after a difficult week with injuries in the Europa League.
Yeah, especially as Newcastle and Spurs lost as well. But let's move on to the last game of the weekend, which was Leeds against Liverpool last night at Ellen Road. An absolute hammering for Liverpool, 6-1 for Liverpool. And Sim went 3-1, I went 2-2, so Sim gets a point here. And it was an interesting game, this one, wasn't it? Because I think Liverpool were so dominant, but Leeds were just getting these breakaways and getting a few chances and could have had a couple of goals themselves. But I think the way that you got to look at it at a Leeds fan right now, you've got to be really worried because you're just shipping way too many goals at the moment. 6 this week against Liverpool, 5 last week against Crystal Palace, 4 against Arsenal a few weeks ago, 2 against Wolves in a 4-2 win, 2 against Brighton. I mean, they are shipping so many goals at the moment, and I think that it's definitely should be ringing alarm bells right there at Ellen Road.
Yeah, it should be a massive cause of concern, and it seems to be a similar pattern, a bit similar to the Palace game. They started the game really well. They got the lead. I know they didn't get the lead in this game, but they got the lead in that game, and then they got pegged back right at the end of the half, and in the second half they get completely capitulated, and they were all over the shop, and it seemed as though they just ran out of energy. And the same thing happened against Liverpool. I know they were 2-0 down at half-time, but they did start the game quite well against Liverpool. They had a few chances early doors, which they failed to take, and it looked like they were going to put Liverpool under some pressure. Sinisterra, Aronson, Harrison, Rodrigo were looking quite creative, but they didn't get the goal. Liverpool then sucker punch them with 2 goals just before half time. Second half comes, Sinisterra forces a mistake. It looks like they're back in the game. Good finish from him. But again, same against Palace, completely capitulated. And after it went 3-1, it was completely one-way traffic. It was so easy for Liverpool. They didn't have to do anything. They just had to play it around the back, wait to draw out the Leeds attack, and then just play through them, and it was so easy. They made it easy for Liverpool, and it was like the perfect opponent for them. Their defence is so weak at the moment, Leeds. It was like a knife through butter for Liverpool to just play through them, and you have to say their attack looked electric. Liverpool, Gakpo, Salah, Jota, Nunez, all on the score sheet, and they completely deserved their 6-1 victory, and it could have been more. And I think Meslier, he's like conceded from all his shots on target or something in the last 2 games, which is ridiculous to think about. But they're lucky.
Is the Hugo replacement?
I don't know, maybe. Look, he's still quite young, but for Leeds, look, it'll be easy to say they look doomed at the moment, considering they've scored 11 goals. They've conceded 11 in the last 2, but still 16th, 2 points ahead of Everton and Forest. So, look, I don't think their relegation will be won and lost in games against Liverpool. It's going to be the games around them. They need to pick up points, but they need to start being a lot more solid at the back, because you can't be shipping 11 goals in 2 games in a relegation battle. That's just you're doomed to fail if you do that.
Yeah, and it seems as though they've found a new role for Trent Alexander-Arnold the last couple of games, coming into the midfield. I think he's looking really good in that role, isn't he?
Yeah, and he got a brilliant assist, I think, for Nunez's goal. Lovely chip over the top.
2 assists yesterday.
The first assist.
First and last.
Yeah,
Gakpo.
That's right. So the first assist was like classic Trent, overlapping on the right-hand side and across the face of goal. And then the second assist was this new Trent Pirlo role he plays, which is like...
Trent Alexander-Pirlo.
Exactly, in the middle of the park, lovely little dink over the top, like pinpoint onto Nunez's chest, and he was able to slot it home.
It makes sense, though, because his passing ability is like one of the best in the Premier League, so it just makes sense that he can play that role. Yeah,
and we've seen other teams like Man City and Arsenal use this kind of role of putting the fullback into midfield. There's no reason why Trent shouldn't be able to play that role. He did it once for England, actually, but it was a complete failure, and I think he got taken off early, and it completely flopped. But it seems like Klopp has been working at it, and it's something that I agree with. Was someone with Trent's passing ability and his eye for his vision, he's a bit wasted sometimes when he's stuck in the right back position all the time, albeit that was his biggest strength when Liverpool were at their best, because he was kind of given a free role. But now when he's asked to defend more, you put him into midfield, give him some more cover, and now he can use that passing ability at will.
Yeah, so really good for him. But let's move on to the star men. It was a clash of the Titans this week. Harry Kane against Erling Haaland. Harry Kane does not come out on top this week. 0 goals, 0 assists in a 3-2 loss to Bournemouth. Erling Haaland only needed 45 minutes to score 2 goals. He got taken off at half time, and I was fuming when he got taken off because I thought he could have gone on and got literally 4 or 5 goals. But
Pep showed mercy on me, I think.
Pep
mercy.
definitely showed mercy on you. So I gained 10 points this week for the star man. So we end off on quite a gap this week, 273 to 303. What you got to say for yourself, Sim?
6 5-pointers, that's all it is.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. 6 5-pointers. I just need to pick out a couple of hat-tricks from now to the end of the season. That'll be it.
Yeah.
That'll be it. I'll get 'em.
Who have you got left to pick to that?
I've got some people in my back pocket. Don't you worry. I'm not going to give away all my secrets.
Fair enough. But that is your Premier League perspective this week. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on all the games this week in the title race and the relegation scrap. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.